Hello there, my friend. If you're over 60 and love taking your daily walks, I want to share something incredibly important with you today. Walking is one of the best things you can do for your health, but here's the thing that many people don't talk about enough. As we get older, our risk of falling increases, and that can turn our beloved walks from something joyful into something scary. But it doesn't have to be that way. Over the years, I've learned some simple yet powerful walking techniques that can dramatically reduce your risk of falling and help you walk with confidence again. These aren't complicated medical procedures or expensive gadgets. They're practical, easy-to-follow strategies that you can start using today. Let me tell you about something that happened to my neighbor Helen just last month. She was walking her usual route around the block when she stumbled on a small crack in the sidewalk. Thankfully, she didn't fall, but it shook her up so much that she almost stopped walking altogether. That's when I shared with her the first walking trick that can make all the difference, and it's something so simple you might think it's too obvious to matter. The trick is to always keep your eyes up and scanning ahead, not down at your feet. I know it sounds basic, but think about it. When we're worried about falling, our natural instinct is to stare at the ground right in front of us. But here's what happens when you do that. You miss seeing obstacles that are coming up ahead, you don't notice changes in the pavement or terrain, and you actually throw off your balance because your head position affects your entire body's alignment. Instead, keep your gaze about 10 to 15 feet ahead of you. This gives you enough time to spot potential hazards, like uneven pavement, debris, or wet spots, while still allowing you to see what's immediately in front of you with your peripheral vision. Helen started practicing this, and within a week, she told me she felt so much more confident. She was catching sight of things she would have missed before, like that sprinkler head that sticks up slightly from the ground, or the section of sidewalk that's always slippery because it's shaded and stays damp longer. Now, here's the second trick that goes hand in hand with keeping your eyes up, and it's about how you actually place your feet. Most people don't realize that the way they step can either increase or decrease their stability. When you walk, try to land your foot with your heel first, then roll through to your toe. This heel-to-toe motion isn't just natural, it's your body's built-in shock absorber and balance system. But here's the key part. Make sure you're lifting your feet high enough to clear any small obstacles. I learned this lesson the hard way during my own walking journey. I was shuffling along, barely lifting my feet off the ground, thinking I was being careful. But shuffling actually increases your fall risk because your toes are more likely to catch on tiny bumps or cracks. When I started consciously lifting my feet just that little bit higher with each step, my confidence soared. It felt like I was walking on air instead of tiptoeing through a minefield. The third trick involves something you probably never think about: your arms. Your arms are like built-in balance poles, and most of us aren't using them nearly enough. When you walk, let your arms swing naturally at your sides. This isn't about exaggerated movements or looking silly. It's about allowing your arms to do what they're designed to do, which is help you maintain balance and rhythm. Watch a tightrope walker sometime. They use their arms constantly to maintain balance. You're not walking on a tightrope, but the principle is the same. When your arms swing naturally, they create a counterbalance to your leg movements, making your entire walking motion more stable and fluid. If you're carrying something in one hand, like a water bottle or a small bag, try to balance it out by carrying something light in the other hand or switch hands periodically. I remember teaching this to my friend Robert, who always walked with his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He thought it looked more casual and relaxed, but it was actually making him less stable. Once he started letting his arms swing freely, he noticed he felt more balanced, especially when walking on uneven surfaces or when he needed to change direction quickly. These first three tricks, keeping your eyes up and scanning ahead, using proper heel-to-toe foot placement with adequate lift, and letting your arms swing naturally, form the foundation of confident walking. They work together like a three-legged stool, each one supporting the others. When Helen combined all three techniques, she went from being nervous about every step to looking forward to her walks again. She even started exploring new routes in her neighborhood, something she hadn't done in years. The beautiful thing about these techniques is that they become second nature pretty quickly. You don't have to think about them constantly once you've practiced them for a week or two. They just become part of how you walk, like muscle memory. And the confidence boost you get from walking more securely, that's something that extends far beyond your daily walks. It affects how you move through your entire day. But let's talk about something that might surprise you: the importance of what you wear on your feet. I can't tell you how many people I've met who are wearing shoes that are actually working against them. Your footwear is your foundation, and the wrong shoes can turn even the most careful walker into someone who's constantly at risk. Here's what I learned from my podiatrist friend, Dr. Martinez, who's been helping seniors walk safely for over 20 years. The shoes you choose for walking need to have a few specific characteristics, and none of them have to do with fashion or looking good. First, they need to fit properly, and I mean really fit, not just feel okay when you're sitting in the store. Your feet actually swell slightly throughout the day, so the best time to try on walking shoes is in the afternoon or evening when your feet are at their largest. The sole of your shoe should be flexible enough that you can bend it with your hands, but not so flexible that it offers no support. Think of it like this: your shoe should bend where your foot naturally bends, right at the ball of your foot. If the sole is too stiff, you'll end up with an awkward, unnatural walking motion that can throw off your balance. If it's too flexible, you won't get the support you need, especially on uneven surfaces. Here's something that changed everything for me: the grip on the bottom of your shoes. I used to wear shoes with completely smooth soles, thinking they were more comfortable. But smooth soles are like walking on ice when you encounter even slightly wet or slippery surfaces. Look for shoes with a good tread pattern, not too aggressive, but enough to give you traction. And here's a tip that might save you from a fall: check the bottom of your shoes regularly. Over time, the tread wears down, and you might not notice it happening gradually. When the tread gets too worn, it's time for new shoes, even if the rest of the shoe looks fine. My friend Margaret learned this lesson when she slipped on a slightly damp sidewalk outside her grocery store. Her shoes looked great, but when we examined them afterward, the soles were completely worn smooth. She hadn't realized how much the tread had worn away over the months. Now she checks her shoes every few weeks, and she's never had another close call. The fourth walking trick builds on proper footwear, and it's about adapting your walking pace to match your environment. This isn't about walking slowly all the time. It's about being smart about when to speed up and when to slow down. When you're walking on familiar, smooth surfaces in good weather, you can walk at whatever pace feels comfortable and energizing. But when conditions change, maybe the sidewalk becomes uneven, or there's a light drizzle, or you're walking in a crowded area, that's when you need to adjust. I used to think that maintaining a consistent pace was the key to good walking, but I learned that flexibility is actually much more important. When you approach a curb, slow down slightly and pay attention to the height difference. When you're walking on a surface you're not familiar with, take your time to get a feel for it. When visibility is poor, whether it's because of weather or lighting, reduce your speed until you can see clearly again. The fifth trick is something that took me years to figure out, and it's about understanding your own body's signals. Your body is constantly giving you information about your balance, your energy level, and your stability, but many of us have learned to ignore these signals or push through them. Learning to listen to your body isn't about being overly cautious. It's about being responsive and smart. For instance, if you're feeling particularly tired or your legs feel unsteady, that's not the day to challenge yourself with a longer route or more difficult terrain. If you notice that your balance feels off, maybe because you're getting over a cold or you didn't sleep well, acknowledge that and adjust accordingly. This might mean walking a shorter distance, choosing a route with better lighting, or walking with a friend instead of alone. I remember one morning when I was feeling a bit dizzy. Nothing serious, just one of those days when everything felt slightly off balance. My old approach would have been to push through and take my usual walk anyway, proving to myself that I was fine. But instead, I listened to my body and chose a shorter, more familiar route. Halfway through that walk, I realized I had made the right choice. I felt much better by the end, and I hadn't put myself at unnecessary risk. The sixth trick involves something that many people overlook completely: the importance of strengthening your walking muscles even when you're not walking. The muscles that keep you stable and balanced during your walks need attention and care, just like any other part of your body. But this doesn't mean you need to join a gym or start a complicated exercise routine. There are simple exercises you can do at home that will make a tremendous difference in your walking confidence and stability. Standing on one foot for 30 seconds while holding onto a chair or countertop helps improve your balance reactions. Rising up on your toes and then lowering back down slowly strengthens your calf muscles, which are crucial for maintaining stability. Even something as simple as walking heel to toe in a straight line across your living room can improve your coordination and balance. What I love about these exercises is that they can become part of your daily routine without feeling like a burden. While you're waiting for your morning coffee to brew, stand on one foot. While you're watching the evening news, do some toe raises. These small investments in your strength and balance pay huge dividends when you're out walking. Now let me share with you the seventh trick, which is something that revolutionized how I think about walking surfaces. Most of us tend to stick to the same familiar routes, walking on the same types of surfaces day after day. But here's what I discovered. Gradually exposing yourself to different types of walking surfaces actually makes you a more confident and stable walker overall. I don't mean you should suddenly start hiking on rocky trails or walking on ice. What I mean is gently challenging yourself with variety. If you always walk on smooth sidewalks, occasionally try walking on a well-maintained gravel path or a rubberized track at a local school. If you always walk on flat surfaces, find a gentle slope or hill to include in your routine once in a while. The key word here is gradually. When I started doing this, I was amazed at how much more aware I became of how my body adapts to different surfaces. Walking on grass taught me to lift my feet a little higher and pay more attention to unevenness. Walking on a gentle incline showed me how to lean slightly forward and take shorter steps for better control. Walking on a track made me more conscious of my rhythm and pace. Each surface taught me something new about balance and stability. My walking partner Dorothy was initially skeptical about this approach. She felt safest on the smooth paths we'd always used. But when I suggested we try the walking path at the community center, which has a slightly different surface texture, she agreed to give it a shot. Within a few weeks, she noticed that she felt more confident even on our regular routes because her body had become more adaptable and responsive. The eighth trick is about timing, and it's something that can make or break your walking experience. The time of day you choose to walk affects everything from visibility to foot traffic to your own energy levels. Most people think about walking in terms of convenience, when they have time or when the weather is nice. But smart walkers also consider when conditions are optimal for safety. Morning walks have some wonderful advantages. The air is usually cleaner, it's often cooler, and there's something energizing about starting your day with movement. But mornings also come with some challenges. If you're walking very early, visibility might be limited, and your body might still be a bit stiff from sleep. If you choose to walk in the morning, give yourself a few minutes to stretch and move around before you head out, and make sure you're dressed appropriately for visibility if it's still dark. Evening walks can be delightful, especially in warmer weather when the temperature has cooled down. But as the sun sets, shadows can create tricky visual conditions where it's harder to judge distances and spot obstacles. If you enjoy evening walks, try to finish before the light starts to fade significantly, or choose routes that have good lighting. I've found that mid-morning and mid-afternoon often offer the best combination of good visibility, moderate temperatures, and fewer crowds. But the key is to find what works for your schedule and your body's natural rhythms. Some people are naturally more alert and steady in the morning, while others feel more balanced and energetic later in the day. The ninth trick involves something that might seem counterintuitive at first. It's about learning to recover gracefully when you do lose your balance. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should expect to stumble or that falling is inevitable, but the reality is that even the most careful walkers occasionally encounter unexpected situations that challenge their balance. The key is learning how to respond to these moments in a way that helps you regain your stability rather than making the situation worse. When you feel yourself starting to lose your balance, your natural instinct might be to stiffen up or flail your arms wildly, but these reactions often make things worse. Instead, try to stay as relaxed as possible and use your arms to help you regain your balance. Reach out for support if something stable is nearby, or use your arms to counterbalance in the direction opposite to where you're falling. I learned this lesson from a Tai Chi instructor who taught a class at our community center. She explained that in Tai Chi, they practice something called controlled falling, learning to move with gravity rather than fighting against it. While we're not doing Tai Chi when we walk, the principle applies. If you feel yourself losing balance, try to step in the direction you're falling rather than fighting against it. This often allows you to regain control more quickly and safely. One afternoon, I was walking on a path that had some loose gravel, and my foot slipped slightly. Instead of tensing up and trying to stay exactly where I was, I let myself take a quick step in the direction I was sliding and used my arms to help me regain my balance. It worked beautifully. I stayed upright and didn't even break my stride. My walking companion was amazed at how smoothly I handled what could have been a scary moment. Practicing this kind of balance recovery doesn't mean deliberately putting yourself in dangerous situations. It means being prepared and knowing how to respond if something unexpected happens. You can actually practice this safely at home by standing near a wall or sturdy furniture and gently shifting your weight from side to side, getting comfortable with the feeling of being slightly off balance and then recovering. The 10th and final walking trick is perhaps the most important one of all, and it's about building what I call your walking community. This isn't just about finding someone to walk with, though that's certainly part of it. It's about creating a network of support that makes your walking safer, more enjoyable, and more sustainable over the long term. When I first started thinking seriously about walking safety, I was very focused on what I could do by myself: the right shoes, the proper technique, the exercises I could do at home. And while all of those things are crucial, I gradually realized that having other people involved in my walking routine made everything better and safer. Let me tell you about how this worked for me. I started by simply mentioning to my neighbor Tom that I was trying to walk more regularly. It turned out he was interested in walking too, but he'd been hesitant to start on his own. We began walking together twice a week, and immediately I noticed benefits I hadn't expected. Having someone to talk with made the time pass more quickly and enjoyably. But more importantly, from a safety perspective, we looked out for each other. Tom might notice a pothole that I missed, or I might spot a slippery spot that he didn't see. We each had a backup pair of eyes, which made both of us more confident. But your walking community doesn't have to be just one person, and it doesn't have to be people who walk with you every time. I started telling my family members about my walking routes and roughly what time I usually went out. This wasn't about them checking up on me or treating me like I couldn't take care of myself. It was about having people who knew my patterns and would notice if something seemed off. My daughter Sarah lives about 10 minutes away, and she knows I usually walk around 10 in the morning. She doesn't call to check on me or anything like that, but she knows that if I ever need help, or if something seems unusual, she has a baseline to work from. It's like having a safety net that doesn't interfere with my independence. I also discovered the value of connecting with other walkers in my area, even if we don't walk together regularly. There's Mrs. Chen, who walks her dog every morning around the same time I head out. We often wave to each other and sometimes chat briefly. There's the gentleman who walks laps around the school track when I'm there. We've never formally introduced ourselves, but we nod to each other and share a sense of camaraderie. These casual connections create what I think of as a walking neighborhood watch. We're all looking out for each other in an informal way. If Mrs. Chen didn't see me for several days in a row, she might mention it to someone. If I noticed that the track walker hadn't been there for a while, I might ask the school office if they'd seen him. It's not intrusive, but it's caring. Creating your walking community also means connecting with resources in your area that can support your walking goals. Many communities have walking groups specifically for seniors, and these can be wonderful sources of both companionship and safety. The local recreation center in my area has a walking club that meets twice a week. They vary their routes, share information about safe walking locations, and provide a social outlet that makes walking more fun. Some communities have walking programs through hospitals or senior centers that include safety education along with the social aspects. These programs often bring in experts to talk about proper footwear, fall prevention, and other topics that can make your walking safer and more enjoyable. Even your healthcare providers can be part of your walking community. I made a point of telling my doctor about my walking routine and asking if she had any specific recommendations for my situation. She was thrilled that I was walking regularly and gave me some personalized advice about managing my walking routine around my medications and other health considerations. Your walking community can also include local businesses and services. I introduced myself to the pharmacist at the store that's on my regular walking route. I let the staff at the coffee shop I sometimes stop at know that I'm a regular walker in the area. These aren't deep relationships, but they're connections that add to the sense of safety and community around my walking routine. The beautiful thing about building a walking community is that it creates a positive feedback loop. The more connected you feel to other people and to your neighborhood, the more you want to get out and walk. The more you walk, the more opportunities you have to strengthen these connections. And the stronger these connections become, the safer and more confident you feel about walking. I've watched this transformation happen not just in my own life, but in the lives of many other people I've met through walking. There's something special about the community that forms around this simple, healthy activity. People who walk regularly tend to be encouraging and supportive of each other. They share tips about good routes, warn each other about temporary hazards like construction or slippery areas, and celebrate each other's progress and milestones. When you combine this sense of community with all the other walking techniques we've discussed, the proper foot placement, the right shoes, the awareness of your surroundings, the balance training, you create a comprehensive approach to walking that addresses both the physical and social aspects of staying active and safe. The goal isn't to surround yourself with people who are constantly worried about you or who treat you like you're fragile. The goal is to build a network of mutual support and encouragement that makes walking more enjoyable and sustainable for everyone involved.